Stranger than any comet, and it's rewriting what we thought we knew about the cosmos. Me 31 Atlas, the interstellar mystery getting weirder by the day.
How do you explain something that doesn't belong here? Something racing through space faster than 3I Atlas by scientists. There are 9 strange things following it in a straight line, which goes against every rule we know about how space works. Some people say pieces. Some people say something else. Hold on tight, because we're about to find out NASA's most shocking discovery yet. The fragment that shouldn't exist. It was July 2025, and the Atlas telescope in Chile picked up something that stopped experts in their tracks, along with the interstellar comet 3I Atlas, a single bright spot that moved at the same speed and direction as it, like a shadow that wouldn't fall behind. At first, everyone thought it was just dust, which is made up of pieces of the comet's icy surface. But the numbers didn't match up. The thing wasn't moving, shaking, or going away like dust should. It stayed where it was, like a satellite stuck in orbit. Its light signature wasn't the same as ATLAS when experts checked it. This speck had a brighter, bluer glow than the comet. It looked like metal or ice that has just been exposed to the air. Whatever it was, the way it mirrored light was too clean and perfect, like it had been polished. Some called it a piece, while others said it sounded like a mirror or a plate-shaped piece of something that wasn't natural. Avi Loeb of Harvard did the unthinkable. He said that if the reflection was done on purpose, we might be looking at a part of a man-made object, maybe even a probe riding along with the comet. Astronomers looked over each frame again. The spot didn't go away. It showed every turn and curve of ATLAS's path. A twin who doesn't speak follows a stranger from another star. As they tried to come up with a reason, 2 new points of light appeared next to each other and moved right along with each other. The puzzle of Echo 1 was just the start. The synchronous pair. Not long after Echo 1 showed up, deep space telescopes saw 2 dim spots moving next to each other behind 3I Atlas. These strange things started happening soon after Echo 1 got there. Those sparks in the data were not just happening by chance. Every single night it looked like there was a link between them that no one knew about. They always moved at the same speed, distance, and in the same direction. As the sun and gravity pull on the pieces, they often break apart and leave behind trails as they go. But these 2 wouldn't go their separate ways. They kept a gap of millions of kilometers between themselves and moved in a straight line, going against every natural theory that says space junk should spread out. As soon as Hubble and Gemini confirmed the pattern, scientists started running as many models as they could think of. It didn't fit right. Weight would not be enough to hold the parts together because they fit so tightly. Not only was the time perfect, but the geometry was also very good. At first glance, it didn't look like a mistake. Instead, it looked like someone had used the copy and paste function a lot. The author Avi Loeb called it the dance of intelligence. Some people realized how little we know really only after looking at the plots. There are 2 people going together, moving at the same speed and staying stable in the void. When Echo 1 was the spark, the synced pair was the beat. The researchers thought the formation couldn't get any weirder than it already was when their infrared sensors picked up a weak pulse. This was a small flash that happened every 11 minutes. The flicker. At first, it was only a blip, a flash that was so far down in the infrared scans that it was hard to see. But it came back, once more, like a clock, every 11 minutes. It wasn't just noise. It took too long for the pattern to change. Gemini, Subaru, and even the James Webb Space Telescope all started to prove. They all picked up the same pulse. Nature doesn't always follow a plan. Comets and asteroids move around, but nothing in deep space flashes that well. Every burst was the same brightness and came at the same time, never early or late. It seemed like something out there was keeping track of time and leaving its mark with the accuracy that machines usually have. This idea that the surface might be spinning and the light bouncing off of it was put forward by several people. So some people thought it might be resonance, which would mean that the vibrations inside the item were being turned back into light. In fact, though, things were even stranger. That signal stayed stable in a way that didn't fit any known rotation. It wasn't getting worse, changing, or losing its beat in any way. It was a pattern that said everything about the design, which was more than just planned. The researchers knew it was important not to make any assumptions, but they also knew what it looked like in their own minds. This is an alert. There's a beat. An important note to warn you that the thing that was close to 3I Atlas wasn't acting like nature does. While people were looking at the flash, something else started to act in a strange way. In addition to glowing in a strange way, it looked like it was moving in a strange way as well. At least one thing behind Atlas seemed to have changed its direction to make it fly more efficiently. The object that changed course. Most comets move in straight lines because gravity pulls them in that direction. One thing, which we'll call the arc, didn't follow that rule though. It followed behind a TLAS and then turned off course. It was straight, smooth and exact. Astronomers made a map of its path, and it wasn't a random spread. It was a sharp turn, like turning the wheel. Its ultraviolet glow came on and off at perfect times, not in a bunch of random sparkles. That light was being changed by either the wind, because it was bending its field of view, or a device inside the object changing its angle. Scientists thought both answers were crazy. It had never been done before by a natural piece. There were two ideas. One idea is that electric forces from the solar wind were pushing it away. This is a crazy idea, but it's possible. Two, it was maneuvering, which means it was actively changing its direction, as if it were being led. Everyone in the lab got a chill from the second one because it wasn't drifting if it could turn even a little, making a choice. NASA's data log had a short note that said, "Non-ballistic drift pattern observed," being looked at. It was possible, but no one dared to say it out loud that something behind a TLAS was moving on purpose. Even though people had different ideas about how the arc was moving, new pictures from Hubble showed a more serious puzzle. 3 cold objects were following closely behind and were locked in perfect formation. They didn't shine. They stayed together. All they did was wait. The silent cluster. Far behind 3I Atlas, radar picked up a strange pattern. 3 faint objects moving together in the dark to make a triangle that looked like it was planned. They weren't shining, spinning, or giving off dust. There was no heat, no reflection, and no sign of life at all. In space, there are only 3 silent bodies that are stuck in place thousands of kilometers apart. Their shape didn't change for months. Based on all the simulations, they should have spread out. The wind from the sun should have pushed them apart. Random pieces never move in a straight line. They drift, hit each other, and disappear. But this cluster stayed in place, as if it were connected by unseen lines. A cosmic triangle moving through space, following the comet's path like a troop train that knew the way. They tried to figure it out. It could be gravity micro-binding, with 3 pieces hanging in the balance. Or it could be something magnetic that is stuck in the comet's electromagnetic field. That idea, though, made me wonder more. How did they stay so stable? Why that shape? Nature doesn't usually arrange itself in triangles. Hubble pictures showed that the objects that should have been glowing were dark. It looked like the things took in all the light. Astronomers thought that it was the strangest shape since Oumuamua's spin anomaly. It was too calm and precise to be an accident. With each new clue, the puzzle grew. It got fainter, but the radar echoes never went away. As 3I Atlas moved closer to the Sun, the group stayed close together and moved at the same speed. Some people started to wonder if what they were seeing wasn't just random junk, but a structure made up of pieces that were linked by something we couldn't see. For now, the silent cluster just followed, a group of ghosts staying well away. But as the comet moved farther into the solar wind, a new shape started to show up behind them. a bright thread that went across the dark and whispered in radio noise. The filament that spoke in static. They first thought it was just a thin ribbon of gas coming from the comet's wake, making a streak of dust. But when they used radio canopies to tune in, something strange showed up. The line was pulsed with life, very quiet, weak bursts of energy that keep happening in perfect time, like a secret code humming through the space between the stars. The filament was more than 3,000 kilometers long and very thin. It was so thin that it could not be seen, but the data showed that it was living. Each spike came at exactly the same time, making a design that looked like it was planned. Some experts call it plasma resonance, which is a natural effect that happens when solar wind interacts with gas that is charged. That was the most likely reason. But some people saw that the waves weren't happening at random. As they played over and over, the dots and dashes, quiet and sound, were timed so precisely that they could not be ignored. The signal stayed the same as more sites tuned in. It kept going the same way as 3I Atlas got closer to the Sun. The Spectre line seemed to be tied to the comet's path. It was like an energy thread tying the silent cluster to the comet's glowing core. It looked like a shimmer to the naked eye, but when played on instruments, it sounded like music. Radio waves that were that weak and shouldn't have been that far away from any planet were carried by the hum. One researcher said, "It wasn't loud. It just hummed in ways that no one could explain." Was it a plasma flow? A natural tie that holds pieces together? Or something that sends info, like a cable that goes through space? The Spectre line made it hard to tell the difference between science and signal, whatever it was. While binoculars watched it pulse, a new source of heat flared nearby. It was small, red, and flickered like an ember in the dark. It wasn't shining a light on it. It was shining inside, full of its own warmth, the one that burns from within. While 3I Atlas's path was cold and quiet, there was one spot that lit up with a soft red light. It was small but steady, like a coal that wouldn't go out. It was first seen by infrared telescopes, which found that what they saw didn't fit any model. This piece, which was called the ember, wasn't reflecting light. It was giving off heat from the inside and beating every few hours like something was breathing inside. The ember was different from most comets because it got warmer as it moved farther away. It slowly flared up, faded, and then flared up again, with each cycle being as regular as a heartbeat. Some scientists thought it might be frozen carbon dioxide bursting, letting out pockets of trapped gas that warmed the surface. Others thought it might be nuclear decay, which happens when elements deep inside the Earth give off energy over time. But none of those ideas worked out. It was too clean, and even the heat. JWST scans showed that the temperature changed in ways that didn't match the angles of the sun or the patterns of release. It seemed like the warmth came from inside, like a steady beat that never stopped. The light curve stayed the same as the object moved through space. There is no flickering or dimming when turning or falling, just measured energy that stays the same. It was on fire, but not from the sun. We didn't know what was inside the ember that gave it power. Chemistry we didn't understand, or something built to last. Like an alarm light on a quiet machine, it stood out against the dark path. When its brightness reached its highest point, instruments picked up something even stranger. A faint reflection behind it that couldn't be seen in normal light, but was exactly mirrored in polarization scans and moving at the same speed as 3I Atlas. The reflection that watches back. You can't see everything in space. Some things can only be seen when the light is bent just right. Astronomers found mirror point not by looking at it directly, but by the strange way it mirrored polarized light. In normal pictures, there was nothing there. But when polarization filters were put on it, all of a sudden, a bright, precise flash showed up that was exactly timed with 3I Atlas's spin. The reflection from mirror point moved 3.5 seconds behind each time the comet turned, like an echo. It wasn't just glare, it was locked to the same beat, which played over and over again with each turn. Scientists looked for mistakes in the equipment, but the signal came back every time, even from different telescopes. If it were a piece of ice or rock, the image would move around in strange ways. It didn't work. The light changed quickly, as if it were reflecting off a flat, shiny metal surface. Some said it sounded like a plate rolling through the dark. Some people thought it was a strange object, like a gadget that reflected the comet and kept track of it by watching it. It seemed less like junk and more like a monitor, like it was part of a bigger system that was orbiting at the same time. People were interested in who or what was holding the mirror because of the way it looked. During the weeks that Mirror Point's image pulsed, ATLAS got closer and closer to the sun. When long exposure pictures were taken one night, they showed something new. Behind the comet, a faint spiral-shaped pattern was appearing and slowly twisting like smoke caught in unseen wind. The heart of the convoy. There is one question that everyone can't avoid when talking about 3I Atlas. What if the comet isn't the main event, but the one that's leading it? The spiral shape behind it, the bright thread of motion, looks like it's full of life. The spiral was its first name, but as more information from Hubble, Gemini, and the James Webb came in, it got a new name: the heart of the convoy. It didn't have a random design. The spiral turned with mathematical accuracy, and each turn matched the comet's spin, making it look like the two were connected and had an unseen heartbeat. The signal was microwave bursts with a frequency of 2.7 gigahertz, which is the same frequency used in radar devices on Earth. The spikes happened exactly at the same times, faded, and then came back, like someone or something was testing a link. NASA confirmed the information, but said it had an unknown source. That meant only one thing to the public: they had no idea what it was. There were more theories. It could have been a cloud of charged dust that was bent into a helix shape by electromagnetic forces. It could have been a field, an energy structure that guided the smaller pieces. Things changed for the spiral as the comet got closer to the sun. It looked like the coils were reacting to heat or a signal because they got bigger, brighter, and then smaller again. The movement wasn't random, it was planned. Nature doesn't often repeat itself so perfectly. All 9 of the trailing items lit up briefly at the same time. When they were lined up, they made a clear geometric path behind Atlas. They lit up like a signature drawn across the sky. The light went out just as quickly as it came on. The group stopped talking and kept moving toward the sun as if its job were done. Some people think that the heart of the convoy was just keeping the comet stable for a purpose we don't understand. Some people think it was a message that we just happened to pick up. It didn't act like dust or ice, whatever it was. It worked like it was meant to. If you enjoyed this journey, like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to click the next video popping up on your screen. The mystery continues there.